Once a man came to me and spoke for hours about his great visions of God he felt he was having. He asked me for confirmation, saying, "Are these wondrous dreams true?" I replied, "How many goats do you have?" He looked surprised and said, "I am speaking to you of sublime visions, and you ask me about goats?" I spoke again, saying, "Yes, my brother, how many goats do you have?" "Well, Hafiz, I have 62. "And how many wives?" Again he looked surprised and said, 4. "How many rose bushes in your garden? How many children? Are your parents still alive? Do you feed the birds in the winter?" To all this he answered, and then I said, "You asked me if I thought your visions were true. I would say they were true if they make you become more human, more kind to every creature and plant that you know." You asked me if I thought your visions were true. I would say they were true if they make you become more human, more kind to every creature and plant that you know. I offer that to myself and to all beings who are suffering through the cataclysm that is the Christmas season and the practice of kindness that's so essential at this time. So welcome. Anybody here for the first time? I think I see a few new faces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Great. The sound is not great there. If you struggle with the sound at all, move down the chairs a little bit. This corner's hard. Hello to those of you joining us on the internet. And I'd like to say it's nice to see you here, but I can't say that. But glad that you're there. Quite a time, isn't it? So what we'll do today, for those of you that are here for the first time, thanks Jim, is a little song, a chant to the refuges. I'll explain that in a moment more. And then there will be a guided meditation, and then Jim Dalton over here on my right will lead us in some movement meditation. Then there will be announcements, which will be me today. Avi is not here. Avi, my assistant, or our community coordinator. And then I'm going to do something that I undertake once every year at this time, which is coming to some greater understanding of what the mythology of this time of year in our culture means and its connection with the Buddha. And how the stories are, it's really the same story. The story of the birth and death of Jesus and the story of the Buddha are really the same story, just in different terminology. Because there is only one story. Right? The story of human beings who take birth and who then are in these separate things, separate bodies. And it's pretty scary being in these separate bodies, and so we try desperately to be happy, and then we die. And what about that? That's the great human conundrum. What do I do about the fact that I'm separate, I'm alive, I have these passionate thoughts and feelings and emotions, and it's hard to get along with each other. And how do I deal with that? And so every world tradition is really about the same question, and different people come up with different vocabularies for the same experience. So it's that small task that I set for myself, and I think for those of you that have heard it, you might find some new things, and for those of you that haven't heard it, you might find it kind of revolutionary. So, the refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha. The Buddha was an ordinary human being, like us. He wasn't a Buddhist. He would probably smile and think, oh, those humans, us humans, if he saw what has become of his teachings. So this refuge in the Buddha isn't refuge in a person. It's refuge in that which is awake, in the experience that the Buddha had, which is accessible to all of us. So refuge in the Buddha, and then the Dharma, with this awakeness, with this mystery that knows. What do we discover? What's the truth? What does science reveal to us? What does the science of self-observation reveal? And then refuge in Sangha, which is the community of practice, but I like to think of it also in terms of the community of all life. At this moment, we are members of the breathing crowd. And there's a lot of us. 7 billion humans and countless billion other creatures. And we're all here, and we're going to disappear before very many heartbeats. And that's our family. So what a nice place to take refuge. It does quite a nice number on borders and political parties, and to realize, oh, I take refuge in my fellow beings. So I invite you to join in this ancient chant put to new garb, new A little music by Betsy Ross. Betsy Ross. That's a different person. That's a different story. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya. Another little poem from Hafiz. The subject today is love, and for tomorrow as well. As a matter of fact, I know of no better topic for us to discuss until we all die. So what would it be to be loving right now? How would it be? What would we love? All we ever have is now, the present moment. And that's not a philosophical statement, that's a statement of fact. There's only now, ever. Everything since the Big Bang, the great flash, whatever we call it, until now is gone, and it's all gone the same place, gone. So we have now. Same with the future, it doesn't exist. Fantasies. So what shall we love? Now. There's this body now. There's this personality now. Whatever emotions are present now. Whatever mood is present now. Presence and love are the same thing. Dare I be alive? And if I so dare, what will I experience? Well, there's a body. In this moment, there is a body, and it's remarkably sensitive. Because of gravity, there's contact with the body, with the floor and the chair. And this body is not just a hunk of matter. It actually is inhabited somehow, co-arises with consciousness. And so there's all these contacts and sensations. You can notice that the place in the universe that you think of as your hands is just life, isn't it? It's just tingling, vibrating. The more closely we attend, the more alive it is, and the more stunning in a way. That to feel the hands closely and in depth is really like looking out into the night sky with millions of stars. There are millions of sensations. And the same is true for that which we take to be legs, face, and breathing. Ever since that moment a little while ago that you took that first breath, in each succeeding present moment, there's been more breath. And so it continues until we disappear. So we can use this kind of like the metronome of our lives, the baseline. Perhaps the baseline is the heart. But at any rate, we can use this sensations of breathing in and breathing out as a home base. No matter what moods are present, no matter what's happening in our life. There's this coming and going of the breath, the actual sensations of breathing. And it's not new and improved breathing somehow or another, emphasizing the abdomen or something like that. It's not pranayama as in yoga. It's really abandoning all control. You can notice that each breath has a beginning. It has a distinct, experienceable rising to fullness. And then a decline. And then a disappearance. Of course, this personality also comes with thinking, imagining, emotions, planning. And so the mind throws up lots of entertainment, lots of, quote, distraction. But don't have a war with this mind. It's just the mind. Mindfulness wakes up in the middle of a wandering mind. Or some would say the thought itself self-liberates. And then there's awakeness, there's the Buddha. And if it makes sense to increase concentration some, come back to the breath. Fire those synapses which are necessary to concentrate on the sensations of breathing. Develop them, strengthen that muscle. In love, there's room for everything. This is, of course, not the love of I'm falling in love or I love pizza or something like that. It's what the Catholic mystics called agape, the love that has no exceptions. So the mood that's present right now, this too. If the mind is concentrated, at ease, full of bliss, this too. If it's restless or anxious or despairing, this too. If it's in battle with itself, I don't want to be feeling this way. I don't want to have these thoughts. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with them? This too. Some of us in this room, no doubt, are in significant pain physically, perhaps chronically. Maybe there's pain that's been happening every day or every minute for years. This too. Mindfulness. Awake to, remaining awake to the experience of this moment. when we realize that meditation isn't some practice that we do a few minutes a day, some special thing. But instead, a remembering to be present. Then there's nothing which isn't our spiritual life. The worst mood, the most painful mood, the most pleasant sensory experience, driving the car, stepping into the shower, changing the diaper, talking on the phone. It's just this, just being here and being awake. And we can hone the capacity to attend and to be concentrated using the breath. The actual expansion of the chest and abdomen and back, and then their contraction. Physical pain may arise. As mammals, we're instinctively wired to always move away from pain toward pleasure. And of course, in our meditation practice, if what we're doing will damage the body, then of course we move. But with little pains, with the pains that come from sitting a little long, itches, we can use them to grow, to become more resilient, to be able to bear that which was previously unbearable without freaking out. So when there's a pain, you notice it. It's that. Oh, there's discomfort. Back to the breath. There's pain. Back to the breath. But then that unpleasantness is pretty strong. And so we do the utterly counterintuitive thing, which is turn awareness as deeply, intimately, and closely as we can into those very sensations, and into the disliking and the fear, the impatience. We bear what it is like to be human, to have a body. being here now. Doing nothing to change the moment is the hardest thing we humans can do. It served us well. We have become the hyper-dominant species on the planet. But to be happy and free, to be liberated, it only happens now. Please allow your awareness, this awareness, to fill the entire body if you can. Everything from the toes to the tip of the head, to the fingers, to the shoulders, face, hands. One tingling, vibrating mass of life. Breathing. And notice that up near the top, if we could call it that, of this structure of life, there are some feelings, sensations in what we call the eyes. And notice what it takes to form the intention and then to ever so kindly, gently make the effort required to peel back the eyelids and see. And notice how seeing happens. Is it something that you do, or is it nature? Seeing. Seeing in full awareness. And then, to play with it, you could form the intention to allow the eyes to close again and notice how seeing disappears. And then there's an intention that happens in the mind, and then they can open again. I just noticed arising in this mind one of the pithy, elegant, exquisite teachings of the Buddha. In the scene, only the seeing, no seer is to be found. In the heard, only the hearing, no hearer is to be found. And so on. In the emoting, in the emotion, only emoting, no emoter is to be found. The great teaching of Christmas and Easter and the Buddha. Freedom from identification with this being. Well, Mr. Dalton, you want to do it? So Jim will teach, we'll have some announcements, and then further adventures. Reach down in here. Oh, let me turn it off.
So we come into awareness of our standing form again, feeling our connection with the earth through the bottoms of our feet, through the foundation of the building into the earth. And if we put our hips into a circular pattern, we can feel a series of sensations from the hips down into the feet. How many sensations? I can't count them. But if we picture a face of a clock down below, we can go from 12 to 3 to 6 to 9 to 12. Just allow the attention to just settle on those 4 central quadrants of the clock. And we discover that this mindfulness, this attention, this awareness can be placed somehow with this inner feeling of agency. I'm going to place it on 12. I'm going to place it on 3. I go the other way, reverse the sequence. There's this mysterious quality of choosing a pattern and then placing the attention on aspects of that pattern. What if we sync and interlock our fingers and get the feeling of lifting, even though there's nothing in our hands, and then pressing, even though we're not pressing against anything, we have this ability to be aware of pressing, then releasing that, and then turning the wrists and sinking. So the awareness can be in a flow from below to above, and then there's sensations that tell us that yes, that's what's happening. Sinking, releasing the breath, reversing, breathing in. We tie the breath to a whole bunch of inner sensations. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. And then release the arms and just let the breath come and go. So now we're aware of a softer flow. It's not tied to a gesture. It's just the whole body absorbing new energy with the inhale, releasing what we don't need with the exhale, but not forcing it into any pattern or even suggesting a pattern, just letting the body breathe. And again, we sink and rise. Sink. We have this sensation of sinking. Where is that? It's all through the body, rising, sinking, lifting the hands up, spreading them apart like we're opening a window, pressing forward, opening the door, and sinking. Using the spine to lift, open and press, open a different way, and sink. So the palms are down, the fists are tight. We pull, then we soften and open to the front. Bring the thumbs up and open. Very different flavors. Rising, releasing, breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. All these different flavors from one gesture. And then coming to stillness. There's a recognition of stillness. It's not a flow. Well, it is a flow. It's a different flow. And we can cross over and lift one arm and release it. And the other side, lifting the heel. That's a different flavor. Open-handed. Relaxed. Coming to stillness again. Noticing that river of sensation in stillness. We'll open the stance a little bit farther. Feel a different flavor of sensation, lifting both arms and releasing down, down, down. Lifting part way up and pushing forward. Feel a sensation in the legs and then lengthen the spine. And rest. Lifting, lengthening in a different way. Releasing. Engaging the legs. Coming part way up. Pressing forward. And lengthening the spine. One more time. Lifting. Releasing. Part way up. The legs support us. We press forward and extend the spine. And just feel the stillness again. stretch for the spine, opening to the side. Coming down the center. Easy rhythm, easy pattern. The legs are working, but without such intention. Just gliding up and gliding down. Aware of sensation in the shoulders, in the knees, in the feet. Wherever we pay attention, there's a flow of sensation. And one more. Bring the feet a little closer together and relax the shoulders, relax the arms, relax the hands, and just let the attention drift through the whole standing form. What do you feel? Aliveness all through this standing form. Might be clearly perceived, focused attention in one place, or just general openness. Anything in between. A standing form filled with the flow of life. And then bringing our hands together in gratitude for a standing body and full breath and lots of friends to practice with. Thank you very much.
Thank you for doing the camera work up. Oh, that's better. The camera work up there. Be prepared, I'm going to meander. If we have a radio mic, why not be stuck? All right. Hello, my name is Avi. I'm the I'm the community coordinator. Oh, wait. It's not quite right. There we go. I'm Robert. There we are. Thank you, Avi. So, boy, we have things happening. Woo-wee. Oh. On Friday, November 30th, there's Creating a Transgender Inclusive Sangha. If you missed it, you missed it. It's gone. All right. Oh, boy. How to do all this. Right, 5 minutes, right. So, are you aware of how special this place is? And what happens here? This really is a place of human transformation. If it happens anywhere on the planet, it happens here in this place. The friendships and the kindness and so on. And so I want to invite you to become as much a participant as you want, as suits you, and to be part of community in terms of volunteering. We really need some volunteers. We really need someone to be responsible for the gardens. And it's a responsibility. It's not a huge job, but it's someone to take care of things and to help other people get involved in that. We need housekeeping volunteers. And this is an experiment. PIMC is a freestanding, it's like a spore, blew out of Burma and Thailand and landed here. Unlike the Christian churches, there's not a mother church, thank goodness, that we have to account to and send a tremendous amount of funds to. We get to be ourselves. So think about volunteering. Kirsten is here. She'd be happy to talk with you about that. I guess along that same line, we're in the last few days of our end-of-year fundraising, and you can go to the website in the top right corner and make a donation. And that donation is what keeps the place running. It's a brick and mortar kind of place. And the fundraising has gone very well. I think there's something like $7,000 or $8,000 that have been raised so far. We didn't set a goal. But it helps things work along. Beyond that, New Year's Eve. All right, mind. Isn't it interesting when you try to remember something and then you think, oh, I'm not going to remember, and then you can't remember? Gary Sanders and I, in this room, starting at 8 o'clock, we'll be doing something we did last year, which is some sitting practice, and then a grief ritual. In the middle of the room will be a stainless steel bowl. There will be a bucket of pebbles, and you'll be invited to reflect upon the grief of your life, your losses in this year, and just to honor anything that's really painful in your life. And then as we chant, one at a time, people go up and drop their pebbles in the stainless steel bowl, and it's really impressive. And if you want us to chant louder so you can't be heard, you raise your hands like this. If you want us to be quieter, you raise your hands like this, and then you can speak. So we'll do that. And then there will be an aspiration building for the next year, and then coming into the new year, we'll be chanting the refuges and precepts and doing some more practice. So a way to spend New Year's Eve very consciously and lovingly. What time? Starts at 8. This is not the right list. Frank Lader, my dear friend Frank, let's look at the date, is coming from Germany to teach here at PIMC. And it is the calendars, there it is, the 12th of January. The information's out, it's on the website. Frank is a Dharma brother. He was with Ruth Dennison almost as long as I was. We didn't know each other till the last year or so. And actually, maybe we didn't meet until actually after her death. But he's my pea in a pod, but in Germany, and he's an amazing guy. He founded the Touch Life School of Massage, which has graduated hundreds, if not more than that, of massage therapists throughout Germany. And he's a man of incredible compassion and humor and a great teacher. So I invite you to join him on the 12th. Oh, and there's other things. You're doing when does it start?
The Nonviolent Communication course for the next season starts January 19th, and it's a 10-week class, starting with that Saturday retreat, followed by every Tuesday from 7 to 9:15.
And I have a class that's starting in late January. The information hasn't gone out yet. One more thing to do. And that's we're going to read one of the books by Achan Sumedho. And I'm calling it Deep Practice and Deep Wisdom. And that'll be here on Wednesday nights. Information to come soon. So I think, you want to do, come on up here. It's working.
Hi everyone, I'm Michael Midshall, and for the past 5 years I've been a volunteer here, and my job has been to take this big collection of things which all of you have donated to a place downtown called Transition Projects. And this morning before coming over here, I looked up an article that I'd seen a while ago because I wanted to get my facts straight. The article said that last year 80 homeless people in Portland died, and it was about the same the year before. And 5 of those were from hypothermia. So it's a very modest effort that we put in here, but there's a very large need. And I think there's a great opportunity here for each of us to kind of examine our lives and all the things that we have and those that we don't need and maybe could help someone who is less fortunate and really struggling at this point in their life. So Transition Projects has 3 main services. They help people with their basic needs. They provide 800 beds for people that don't have a place to sleep each night. And their main mission, as the name mentions, is to help people transition into permanent housing. And so anything that you have that could be useful for someone who's living on the street, namely warm clothes for this time of year, or anything that's waterproof, or basic needs in terms of toiletries that are handed out every single day. I'll take those things and fill up my car. I do this about once or twice a month. So I want to thank everyone who has participated in this generous offering over the years. And today I also have sort of a special request. I've been doing this for 5 years, and it really enriches my life when I go down there and I see all of the people around the building that really have a strong, strong need. And it feels great to be able to go in and give things that others really need. So I would like, if there's anyone else that would like to help me with this endeavor, please come and talk to me after the service today. I'm not as regular as I used to be, and so sometimes things have really piled up. And so, and I also like to ride my bike, and that's hard to get things over there when you do that. So things come up. So if there's someone else who would be interested in helping me out with this, please see me after. I'd really appreciate it.
Thank you. We have a mountain of stuff. Would you like help getting it out of your car today? Yeah?
People that offer that, so I thank everyone for that part today.
You're good with that? Okay. Something disappeared in my list here. Maybe we won't do that. Let's do this instead. heard this on NPR. I don't know the attribution of it. I heard it and I read it. I went back and listened again and transcribed it. It's one of those commentators whose voice you know really well. It's like, oh yeah, it's him. I forget who it was. Joseph was unemployed. His unemployment compensation had run out. He was a carpenter, but the only work going on in his neighborhood was boarding up storefronts. He and Mary had no place to live, and Mary was pregnant. She told Joseph that she would be the child that he would. She told Joseph that he would be the child's father, but he wasn't the child's father. The spark that began the life of their child came from, well, it was too embarrassing and ridiculous for Joseph to repeat. Friends told him that he was being taken for a fool, but Joseph loved Mary and knew that the last few months had been hard. He decided that whatever fantastic stories Mary told him, he would love the child as his own. That night, Mary had a baby boy. He seemed healthy, wrinkly, and had a nice loud cry. Mary swaddled this baby in old copies of bankrupt newspapers and laid him down in the back of an abandoned car. A stray dog, grimy from the road and whimpering with loneliness, kept watch over the baby and warmed him with her panting. Joseph also put his iPhone close to the baby so he could be lulled to sleep with a lullaby app. At night, a star appeared in the east, and three wise persons, Warren Buffett, Alexander McCall Smith, and Monica Ali, came to behold Joseph and Mary's child. That got you. Well, wait. It's contagious, isn't it? All right. Came to behold Joseph and Mary's child. They wanted to bring him gold, frankincense, and myrrh, but that hadn't been available since Lehman Brothers collapsed. So the wise people brought gift cards to Chipotle. The infant saw them and smiled. Mary took the look of delight in her child's face and said to herself, "He's happy with us." But she saw Joseph sitting by himself at the far end of the garage and knew he was worrying how he was going to make a life for their child. When Joseph came back to the car, his eyes glimmered. "I think I finally understand," he said, "why we have been given the gift of this child. It doesn't matter who the father is, does it? Every child cries for love and deserves our care. Every child who is hungry in Sudan or cold in Cleveland. Every little girl who is abandoned by a roadside in China. Every little boy in Congo who is dragged into someone's army. Any little girl or boy anywhere who is threatened with an epidemic, explosion, or indifferent parents. I must love them all as a father loves his child." Mary and Joseph sat with their arms around each other and their baby boy and the dog who they decided to adopt on the spot, hopped up on the seat beside them and put her head gently into Joseph's lap. The star that had found them seemed to stay above them for a moment while their child slept peacefully, safely in their arms, looking out at a world that seemed suddenly new. Let me take one more minute and see if I can find this other thing. It's kind of an interesting notion that every child is my child. Remember, there's no need to wait. Ruth Denison, Dalink, once you have the Dharma, there's no need to wait ever again. There's always so much to attend to. Can you what? Sure, thank you. That'd be great.
This week I had my usual
Hold closer.
Sangha celebration. It includes a lot of people here, and it's for the solstice. And
Connie, hold it closer.
okay.
Point it at you.
Yeah, okay.
There we go.
And it was wonderful seeing a lot of friends. And we celebrated and we did our fire dance. But as the evening wound down and people were leaving, I opened this up to a lot of communities. And so sometimes the people that come I don't know. And this one young man came with a long beard and a lot of heavy clothes. And I welcomed him in, and we were having a discussion, and he was in the kitchen, and he was doing a lot of things. But one thing I saw was he was eating a lot. And I was really happy, because we had this huge feast. And he was very respectful, and he stacked the dishes. And he joined our conversation. He was very lively, very intelligent, wonderful part of our gathering. And everyone left, and he was still there. And he was washing our dishes about 1 o'clock. It was just Rod and I and this young man, and I was starting to wonder, because his socks had holes and everything, that possibly he might be houseless. And so I asked him as he was washing the dishes, where is it you're living now? And he said, up in the forest, but I don't want to tell you where because it's really a cool spot. And I don't want anybody to know. And I was going, that's cool, you know. And he said, but his parents lived nearby, and he'd heard about this gathering, and he came. And we just had a wonderful, wonderful time sharing with him. And I noticed a little bit of fear in me that maybe he wouldn't go. And I'm just sharing that with you. Because then there was this fear, well, maybe I should let him stay. And there was all this, but there was this dignity about him. And so I let it go. And it was really beautiful, because at the end, about 1:30, when everything was done, he went out to his bike. I offered him a pair of socks, and he said, no, I like the special kind. And he explained to me that he didn't like his feet to get wet, because then they were cold, and so they were. So anyway, long story short, he did leave, and I just had a special time with this person, and I wanted to share that.
Thank you, Connie. Thanks for that laugh. That was wonderful. A few weeks ago, I went to hear David Sedaris at the Schnitz and laughed for about an hour and a half like that. It was wonderful. Such a relief. We really do have a dilemma, we humans. Being born into these human bodies, and then, among other things, trying to govern ourselves with conflicting ideas, and we have such a hard time getting along. And we have a really hard time sharing. Thank you. That's such a nice story of sharing. So at the heart of every culture, there's a story or a few stories. In the United States, we have many stories. Same in Canada, where I grew up, because we're countries of immigrants. Everybody except the folks that were displaced. We're all very recent immigrants to this continent. And so there's a story at the center. And I would credit Joseph Campbell with most of what I'm about to say now. Joseph Campbell and Robert Bly, Michael Meade, James Hillman. But I want to share with you the traditional story of the birth of Jesus. Now I know some people say, "Oh God, I don't want to hear that. I can't. I got away from that." Right? But I do it for a very specific reason, which is, how do I say this? Many years ago, I was doing a training. It was a Jungian Christian training. It was 18 days, I think. It was called The Basic Records of the Life and Teachings of Jesus. And it was all about the New Testament from a Jungian perspective. And it totally blew my mind to see it as mythology, as a story, to inform, a story which informs us of our own inner lives. But the part I want to tell you about was one afternoon. It was run by these three elderly women. They were in their 70s or 80s. And back then I would have said they were old, but now that I'm 71. But anyway, one afternoon, they had these funny little instruments, little cymbals and little drums and little toot 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 things, and they broke the group up into two parts. One half would make music, and the other half would dance as they read creation stories. So they read the creation story of Spider-Woman coming down and Spider-Mother, I guess, not Spider-Woman. And there was the Ugandan one, and the last one they did was the one of the Judeo-Christian Bible. And I had this moment of, it's a story. Because way deep inside my little child's conditioning, I still thought it was the true story. So this story, I want you to listen as a mythologist, as a person interested in how does this form my understanding of the world. So, it goes like this. Now in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a city in Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin, which in the Greek meant she who is owned by no man, had nothing to do with sex. So, to she who was owned by no man, betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David. The virgin's name was Mary, and having come in, the angel said to her, "Rejoice, highly favored one, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you among women." But when she saw him, she was troubled at his saying, and considered what manner of greeting this was. Then the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God, and behold, you will conceive in your womb and bring forth a son, and you shall call his name Jesus. He will be great, and will be called the Son of the Highest, and the Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever," which is a Jewish prophecy, "forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end." Mary said to the angel, "How can this be, since I do not know a man?" And the angel answered her and said, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Highest will overshadow you. Therefore also that Holy One who is to be born will be called the Son of God. Now indeed, Elizabeth, your relative, has also conceived a son in her old age, and this is now the 6th month for her who was called barren. For this God nothing will be impossible." Then Mary said, "Behold, the maidservant of the Lord, let it be to me according to your word," and the angel departed from her. Ever had any intuitions come? Something's changing in your life. Something new is going to come through you that you don't know what the heck it is, but you're willing to go for it. Mary visits Elizabeth. Mary arose in those days and went into the hill country with haste to a city of Judah and entered the house of Zacharias and greeted Elizabeth. And it happened, when Elizabeth heard the greeting of Mary, that the babe leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. Then she spoke out with a loud voice and said, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. But why is this granted to me, that the mother of my Lord should come to me? For indeed, as soon as the voice of your greeting sounded in my ears, the babe leaped in my womb for joy. Blessed is she who believed, for there will be a fulfillment of those things which were told to her from the Lord." And now from Matthew. Matthew, the biblical gospel writer. Now the birth of Jesus Christ took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph, before they came together, she was found to be with child of the Holy Spirit. And her husband Joseph, being a just man and unwilling to put her to shame, resolved to divorce her quietly. But as he considered this, behold, again, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, "Joseph, son of David, do not fear to take Mary your wife. For that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus. For he will save his people from their sins." All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had spoken to the prophet. More. In those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus. Remember, at that time, the Romans were an occupying army. Right? They were not nice. The crucifixes along the roads, they went for miles, people crucified. Politics. This was the first enrollment when Quirinius was governor of Syria, and all went to be enrolled, each to his own city. And Joseph went up from Galilee, from the city of Nazareth to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be enrolled with Mary, his betrothed, who was with child. While they were there, the time came for her to be delivered, and she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling cloths and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the inn. And in that region there were shepherds out in the fields, keeping watch over their flocks by night. And an angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were filled with fear. The angel said to them, "Be not afraid, for behold, I bring you good news of great joy, which will come to all the people. For to you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. And this will be a sign for you. You will find a babe wrapped in swaddling cloths and lying in a manger." Suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, on earth peace to men with whom he is pleased." When the angels went away from them and into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let's go over to Bethlehem and see this thing that's happened, which the Lord has made known to us." They went with haste, found Mary and Joseph and the babe lying in a manger, and when they saw it, they made known the saying which had been told to them concerning the child. And all who heard it wondered at what these shepherds told them. But Mary heard all these things, pondering them in their heart, and the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God. On and on and on. Potent. Let me think. Then there's the story of the wise men coming and seeing Herod, and then avoiding Herod and their greeting of the baby. And then they fled. Because Herod didn't like the idea of what was threatened was a king of the Jews, a political figure. And Herod went about killing all the little babies. Interestingly, there is not an historical reference to find that. That may be completely mythological. So, Jesus is born. And then there's this whole lifetime, and then at Easter, Jesus dies, nailed to a tree. What is this about? Why has that story been so formal? Why did the Crusades happen? What is it? Why did the great cathedrals get built around this? And I think it's because because it's a true story. But it's a true story inside us. That there is something in us that really, really, really wants to get born. And that it comes from a source, from not a usual source, it comes from the mystery. And that it's a revolutionary birth. If we dare to let it happen, it will completely transform our lives. Now, in the Christian world, the understanding is that this is a true story, an objectively true story, and that that person, that baby was born, and that that boy was the one true son of the Father. And that the spiritual practice is, if you believe that firmly enough, then you'll be freed from the birth and death cycle. You will become free of, and you'll go to heaven, right? That's really not very different from the Buddhist story. It's different garb, but funny, I have a little anxiety. It's interesting talking about this. Funny. The personality, Robert, is experiencing some anxiety talking about this. Maybe it's quite natural. So let's come to the end of the story. Jesus dies in a complicated fashion, but he dies nailed on a cross, which was the common execution modality at that time in Roman culture. Kind of a demonstration. Don't do this, folks. There's another story of Siddhartha Gautama, who's gone forth. I talked just like a week or two ago about his experiment in life, satisfying his sense desires, and that never did it, so he left home, and then he went and practiced the jhanas, concentration practices, mastered them, but that didn't free him from birth, sickness, old age, decay, and death. And then he fasted and fasted for years and almost died, and that didn't free him. And then he sat under the tree and had his encounter with Mara, the Satan figure in Christianity or in Buddhism. And then, before he sat down, he made a vow, which was, I will wake up or I'll die. This is it. I'm going to do this. And then Siddhartha never left the tree. Who left the tree was the Buddha. Because the individual Siddhartha woke up. He realized that he wasn't just this. He was the great mystery. He was, he called it the unborn, the uncreated, and can you see how it's the same story? And can we then take, and Buddhism, the Buddhist story, is another story. It's not the truth either. It's like those, I talked about those creation myths that I heard. They're just different. They're different ways of pointing. There is a true experience. It's really possible for us human beings to transcend birth and death. What? It doesn't say that this body is going to live forever. This body is time limited, and boy, it's short. Right? It's really short. And similarly, this organism, this personality, continues to have its moods and feelings and liking and disliking, and so much potential for pain. But is this body fundamentally, ultimately who we are? That's the question, I think. And is it possible to soften our attachment? Let me see, there feels like there's a significant piece missing. But let me see, is there a question, comment to this? Anybody dare make a comment? Please, coming to you. Please say your name, okay?
I'm Ellen Stern. It seems like for me, the important part of what you're talking about is the original question, which is why do people believe in this?
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to that. But that there is some need for people to formulate their lives around some concepts that allow them to feel some control over things we have no control over.
I believe that makes sense to me. Once you hold on to it, I think the person beside you also wanted it. What I think the mystics of all traditions would say is there's the stories and there's the mythology. And then there is the experience of freedom. And the tiniest glimpse of that then makes the stories transparent and makes it clear, makes the truth of the teaching undeniable. And I think that's what the Buddha's whole lifetime was about, which was helping people have his experience. And that there were tens, hundreds of thousands of people for whom it's like they realized, oh yes, this is true. And therefore, there can't be, there's no room for religious conflict once one realizes the truth of it. Because once he's, oh, that's how they're pointing at it. I get it. Please, my dear.
My name is Joshana, and I'm having a really hard time drawing the parallel between Jesus and Buddha. Because Jesus was born of a divine spark, like he was a special birth, and he's known for his connection as the Son of God.
Right.
And Buddha taught us the path of awakening, having been born rich and having given away all his specialness. He himself opened the path for all of us. So one sort of sets a path of ongoing devotion to something that's external, a God that gives you a special grace. And Buddha points to it's available to all of us should we look. So that distinction's making it really hard for me to see how the two of them are the same story.
Yeah, nicely put. Nicely put. Okay, let me see if I can. I don't know if this goes directly to that, but let me try. I was raised Catholic. And that fell away in my teens. And then I became a worshiper of the Church of the Great Blue Dome, which was through mountaineering and skiing and the outdoors, kind of a Taoist in a way. And then I ran into Buddhism. And then I became very Buddhist, capital B Buddhist, for quite a long time. But around 10 years into the Buddhist journey, I encountered Robert Aitken Roshi, the first American Zen master, and Father Bernard McVeigh, the abbot of the Catholic monastery in Lafayette. And I did 2 10-day very intensive retreats with them, in which we had readings from the Catholic mystics that I had never heard of. And we had communion each day. And the first day I walked in, it was the Mary Knoll Sisters Convent in Tacoma. The first day I walked into the church, if it were here, I walked into the church, and I looked up, and there was Jesus on the cross, but not just Jesus on the cross, the Jesus on the cross from the same production line as my Jesus on the cross from my childhood church. And I fell to my knees sobbing. And I was like, what was that? I kind of got kicked in the head, sort of. And I was sobbing. And what came to me was, in the Buddhist teachings, there's take on a human birth, and it is inherently tremendous suffering. Because there's all this attachment, one identifies with this. And then the only way out is death. And on the cross was Jesus that I understood the only way out of here is death. Now it's the same story. What the Christian and other theistic beliefs say, and it's then held as an article of faith, is that in fact Jesus came from a spiritual source and was different from other beings. And that's part of the creed of Christianity. It's part of the belief structure. And that's not what the mystical Catholics say. That's not what the Gospel of Joseph says. Not Joseph, of Thomas says. It's that this making the belief that he was the one and only and the incarnation of the Spirit and so on, that was something that was introduced post Jesus. Is this getting close at all, or is it if that belief is deep in you as a spiritual belief, then what I'm saying here could be really anathema. I mean, it could be really not acceptable. Because I think what I'm saying is that, boy, it's funny, fear being struck down. One way of describing that astounding human being who was Jesus, another way would be, he's a person who was awake. And he got construed in all these ways, and he was the one and only. But that really, this is how I've come to terms with it, is that he too was an ordinary human being. Either that, or every single one of us is from the divine, mysterious spark, and we are all the one. That we're all, yes, Doyle, that we're all she who comes from the divine spark. And that we don't remember. How's that?
I guess I have such a profound hope that Christianity would awaken to the idea that the spark is within all of us and we all have access to it without their intermediateship. But that's my own particular...
Amen, sister. Hallelujah. Let's give her a hand for that. Yay. Thank you. That was very nice. Doyle, I could see you vibrating over here. This lovely man is Doyle Banks, one of our teachers here at PIMC, a master of nonviolent communication and a great friend. Good with computers, too. His previous life.
So one thing I wanted to respond to, Ellen, to your question. I served 12 years as an Eastern Orthodox Christian priest, and there was a term that we used, OGM, O Great Mystery. And when words and logic and reasoning couldn't pierce the veil, we would sit back and relax and say, OGM. It's a great mystery. And you can't get there, by words alone. And if I understood your question about what is it why do we want to believe, in my experience, it's been because that OGM, that great mystery, is so universally powerful that it pulls us toward itself from the moment of conception. And that our lives are this trying to get oriented to where it is, whether it's on a cross or in a mala or in a meditation or in a walk in the forest or wherever it may appear to us, but we're trying to orient toward it to be able to find it and make it real, bring it true, and manifest it in our lives. I don't know if that's helpful at all, but that occurred to me when I heard you ask that question, is that it's that great mystery that's calling out to us, each and every one of us, to bring us home, to bring us to freedom.
Marla. Oops.
Hi, I'm Christmas. And for me, yes, so I see no conflict, and I feel like both Jesus and Buddha would get along fabulously, and both would feel like, wow, they really kind of reinterpreted what was trying to be said. And love and be loved is the message loud and clear to me from both them and Kuei Yin and all the other wisdom traditions. If we go back to the core, really it's experiencing love and loving. And they're both really clear that it's not material things, and that's kind of the essence.
Thank you, Marla. Oh, in the back. There you go.
Hi, my name is Kathy, and I am, thank you. I am new. This is my second time here, and I just have to share with you my experience reading Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces. I was raised Southern Baptist, and I literally believed that if I stopped believing my traditions, that I would be struck down. And after reading that book and realizing that all of the mythologies were telling the same story, that we are all one, and I have to tell you also that I had a spiritual crisis at that time because I was so embedded in that belief system, and I think our belief systems really can get in the way of our journey. But it just really opened my heart, my mind, and my spirit. It just really blew me open to acknowledge that we are all the same, regardless of what you believe. We're all the same. We come from the same place. And that my way of interpreting it was that no matter what belief system you have, all the players are the same. They just have different names. But basically, they have the same story. And my concept is, I still talk about God, but I also talk about the universe. I believe they're one and the same. And I believe that we're all held in the universe and in God. And I think it's a wonderful journey that you're on. And for me, praying for guides and teachers, and Robert is a wonderful guide and teacher, and all of these people here are wonderful guides and teachers along the way. I don't know if that helps or not, but just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. How many of us in this room have had a major cataclysm? And there's Doug. Hi, Doug. Doug Pullen, one of our teachers. Since forever, since 1979, we've been colleagues doing this. Have had a major cataclysm in your life when your religious worldview crumbled. Yeah, kind of a common experience. A worldview holds us and contains us for a while, and then somehow or another it isn't big enough anymore. And boy, I think among the painful things in a lifetime, that's the biggest for me. Bigger than any death, any loss of a person. When it fell apart, it was big. Like, anybody else? Oh boy, there's a lot. A first time, yay! That's brave of you.
Hello, my name is Graham. As he said, first time. I think that a lot of what I've heard and what I understand through this and other teachings and talks that I've heard is that there's this real desire for an answer, and there's this real desire to feel comfortable in whatever skin that we have. And as someone who's studied psychology, studied myself for a while, it's really easy for people to use these like cues that we've learned over time, different sort of heuristics to see things, put pieces together that may or may not actually fit together. But it feels good when we find these things that sort of click. And it feels really good to have that, like, something to grab onto, whether that's someone else, whether that's a teaching, a practice. But what I found is especially special about these sort of times is being able to sort of come together, sit, accept the things that we cannot change, recognize the things that we can change, and feel comfortable knowing that every time we step out the front door, every time we wake up, it's going to be different. And there's going to be some different thing that happens to us, something that we're not going to expect, something that might be scary, something that might be uncomfortable, but having the patience to sort of breathe through it and having the wisdom to understand that when something happens to you, whether it's by someone else's hand, by what we might consider a divine hand, something like that, that there's not necessarily like an aggression behind it, that there's not necessarily this intent behind it, that something's just sort of happened. And I've learned in my life to sort of just roll with those punches when they come, and to rely on the people around me to help me out. I think that's what most religion goes for, is just, love your brother, love your neighbor, and take a deep breath.
And what was your name?
Graham.
Graham, thank you. Lots of hands were up. Oh. Here we go. I'll be back.
My name is Donna, and I think that what struck me in this story this time, which was different than in previous times, is the extent to which each of these characters, Jesus, the Mary, Joseph, the shepherds, that each of them can help me see a way to the path. They are a way to the path. And I'm not interested anymore in the truth, because it's all true in my mind. It all really does blend. But Joseph, for example, taking the place of a person who has every reason to doubt, yet chooses to trust. Mary, who is overcome with something she absolutely cannot understand, yet chooses to embrace. Jesus, who at the age of 12, according to the stories or so, comes to understand who he is. All of these are things that can help me in my pursuit, because it isn't about so much, a big dogma, but about how to live like these people lived in order to move towards oneness.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael again. I had trouble seeing the similarity with the stories. Like, certainly there's aspects of them that are similar. They're both incredible individuals that gave their lives and imparted on us incredible teachings. But I also was raised Catholic, and I always wondered growing up, like, why do we go to the Roman Catholic Church, Mom and Dad? Because they're the ones that crucified Jesus. And so it wasn't until about 10 years ago that I really came to understand that the Romans basically co-opted Jesus' teachings. And I think that's a stark difference. And so when the Dalai Lama came here and I went to his went to see him, he said that if science ever proves Buddhism wrong, Buddhism must change. And I just see that as such a huge difference. And between that and the great mystery, which is not really taught as a mythological truth, but it's taught as the truth. And there are dire consequences if you don't believe. So now, granted, my spiritual education is not as far along as you, and so I have hope that maybe I can get there. I'm still on the journey.
Thanks, Michael. Anybody else? Over there, Nikki. We have about another 2 or 3 minutes, and then we're going to sing and have the kids come in.
Thanks. I just wanted to acknowledge that as soon as the talk started today, I felt this sort of clenching in my chest and sort of an oh no. And I guess one way to illustrate why, this year there was a ballot measure in Massachusetts that sought to take away non-discrimination protections for transgender people. And those campaigns are always organized out of Christian churches. They give people the petitions and they go get the signatures, and that's how it ends up on the ballot. Mm-hmm. 10 years ago, it was marriage equality. 20 years ago in Oregon, it was don't let gay people be teachers. And there's just a lot of gunk to get through to do a thought experiment about this, and it's like, okay, let me put aside all the people who want to say I don't exist, and then think about how this is equivalent to Buddhism. And I'm not trying to be a Grinch, but I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. You exist. I can feel you. It's quite convincing. Temporary, but convincing. So, I'm not trying to, I'm certainly not trying to say that Buddhism and Christianity, or Buddhisms, there isn't one Buddhism. Buddhism is as schismed and changed. There are Buddhisms practiced in this country that have no relationship to what the Buddha taught. So I'm not trying to validate fundamentalist Christianity or fundamentalist Buddhism as great traditions. There's a monk in Western Burma who is a great pal of Hitler. I mean, he's the religious, quote, background behind the killing of the Rohingya. He today is preaching hate in Buddhist monk robes. They don't know how to stop him. But so the Buddhist teachings can be equally insane. But the mystical teaching, I think, is the same. That's what I'm trying to come to. And there are profound mystical Catholics and profound mystical Buddhists. And that's the crowd I intend to hang out with. And do what I can to rein in anything of the fundamentalist kind. Yeah. So, hi. That was exciting for me. There's something, one more thing, just a second. What doctrine, what dogma could have anything to say, in a way, about now? There's now. And any dogma, they're all thoughts. And where do they happen? Now. And so that which is awake now is free of all dogma. And so a practice, which is I think what the Buddha taught, a practice of be here now, notice seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and mind, what's happening in the mind. And to be there, there's not much to argue about, but there is freedom to be had. And not 6 months from now or 10 years from now if I'm a good little boy or girl and I do all the right things, but now. So please, let's stand. Form a big circle. Would you hold this for me, Christine, please? Are the kids there? Please bring your song sheets, your Pete Seeger song. Okay. So, this little ditty was written by Pete Seeger and sung in many, many contexts during his lifetime. And I think it's a nice way to finish off today. Turn, the swimmers churn, the lovers burn. Peace may the generals learn when I'm far away. Well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Sweet may the fiddle sound, the banjo play, the old hoedown. Dancers swinging round and round when I'm far away. Well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Sweet, where are we? Fresh may the breezes blow, clear may the streams flow, clear above and green below when I'm far away. Well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Thank you, Pete Seeger. Well, may the world go. You want to sit? I can move over here. I haven't landed yet. Whoops. Whoa. That was funny. Oh dear. Oops. Jeez. Stiff. Do we have a hair fire extinguisher for? There we go. Oh, watch! It's your mom. It's your mom. All right. Not yet. Not yet. Whoa! May I hold your hand, sir? Thank you. Ho ho ho. We're not blowing quite yet, but soon. It'll only be a lifetime and a half. Here, may I hold a hand? May I hold your hand, sweetie? Yay. Hang on. Okay, good. Well, we have hands. How nice. How convenient. Because then we can touch one another in this mysterious thing called life. Please give the hand on your left a little squeeze. What would your wish be? If you realized how precious the lifetime of this person was beside you and how blessed you are to have a hand to hold. And to the hand on your right, giving that hand a little squeeze. What would you wish for this person? And now extending this wish around the circle, hand to hand and heart to heart, to all of us. So there's those of us that are unhoused in Portland and around the country and the world. There are those who are very powerful and very weak. There are our siblings of the air, the earth, and the waters. We're all here in this mystery. It's the Buddha calling. Hello. All right. Let's hang on. There you go. So we're ready to sing the song when you are.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Beautiful, thank you. So, dear friends, the greeting at this period is, may you have a wonderful Christmas, whatever it is you're celebrating. May we remember what it's really about, which is the coming of light into our lives and our hearts, and loving ourselves and everybody else. Now, we're going to blow the candle out. Do you want to come up and be close? No, not yet. Not yet. We have to wait till everybody gets positioned. No one's going to do it till I count. Competition is wild, isn't it? 1. Now, everybody pause. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and then after 3, everybody blow. Not yet. Okay, you ready? You do it. 1, 2, 3, blow. Yay! Whew. Have a lovely celebration of your life, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Oh, please join us for tea and conversation. I'm going to, I think. It's, yeah.